Hello, it's Simon Zutshi here, and in this property education video, I'm going to share with you my thoughts on why house prices are dropping in the UK. Now, a lot of people on YouTube have predicted a housing market crash in 2023. I don't think we're going to see a property market crash. We're just seeing a price correction, which is what always happens after a booming market. Now, if you look back to 2008, which is when we had the last crash, the circumstances were very, very different then. And I remember because I was actively investing at that time, and also I was teaching other people how to not only survive, but also thrive in that falling property market. And right now, it feels very similar to the conditions we had in 2008, but I don't think we're going to see such a bad crash. There's a lot of uncertainty in the property market. Many amateur investors are waiting to see what happens. And what that means is, if you know what you're doing, there's a really good opportunity right now, probably for about the next 12 months. Now let's look at what's actually happening. Let me give you a little bit of a property market update. So if you look at the Nationwide, who are very good at reporting these figures, in July, their July to July figures showed actually property prices had fallen by 3.8%. They might say, well, that's not an incredible fall in prices. It's quite a big change when you consider a year ago, the average was a 10% increase in prices. So that's actually a negative sway of almost 14%. It definitely shows the direction in which property prices are going. Now, why is this happening? Why are house prices dropping in the UK? The biggest challenge right now is with high interest rates, relatively high interest rates compared to the last 10 years. Now, the reason interest rates have gone up when we see the interest rate hikes is because the Bank of England, I'm sure you know, uses interest rates as a macroeconomic tool to control inflation. Now, we've had very high inflation due to all the money that the government had to print during the COVID crisis. That's all coming to bear now, and we're seeing really high inflation. Earlier this year, we had inflation over 10%. So from about February 22, we've seen the Bank of England increasing the base rate in an attempt to bring inflation under control. And it's definitely worked. Inflation has come down, I think, as the time of recording this, it's about 6.8%. Now, even though inflation was dropping, the Bank of England still continued to put their interest rates up because they were saying, well, the strategy is obviously working. Inflation hasn't come down enough yet, so we need to continue to put prices up. So what's going to happen to interest rates? Are we going to see more interest rate hikes? Well, who knows? The interest rates could go up a little bit further, but I don't think we're going to see interest rates come down probably until the end of 2023, maybe into 2024. So what does the impact of these high interest rates have on you and your property investing? So let's think about people who are trying to buy property first of all. So if you have a homeowner is looking to buy property, they need to move for whatever reason, they have to get a mortgage that's based on their personal affordability. Now, because the interest rates are very high, the stress test, the affordability test, are even higher. So a lot of people who've got good jobs, got good income, they've got property they want to buy, but they're not able to buy that property because they're just not getting approved for the mortgages. So we're seeing more and more sales fall through. In fact, a good friend of mine runs a nationwide estate agency, and he's saying that more and more sales are falling through. The Office of National Statistics say 36% of deals fall through. That's 1 in 3, but I feel it's going to be more like 1 in 2 happening because of the current crisis we have with interest rates at the moment. Also, we have property investors who recognize that now is a great time to buy as long as you know what you're doing. And they're going out trying to make offers on properties. They're getting accepted. They're applying for their mortgages. And if you're trying to get buy-to-let mortgages right now on single-let properties, the reality is very often they don't stack up. That's because the interest rates are so high, it means that you don't have enough rental income to cover all the costs and a little bit of a buffer. So they're getting knocked back for their mortgages as well. In fact, if you're buying properties right now, the only mortgages that really work are either for HMOs, houses of multiple occupation, or serviced accommodation, because the rental income on those is so much higher, they still make a really good profit. That's why they are the strategies I think you should be using in the current market conditions. Forget buy to let, single let properties, they really don't work very well in the current market. Now, someone put a comment on one of my videos a while ago saying they were buying a property in Manchester for less than 100,000 that was going to make £800 to £900 rent per month. And by the way, that sounds like a great deal. So I would go and buy that deal if I were you. But generally, single let properties don't stack up right now. Now let's talk about people who are trying to sell their properties. Well, we have lots and lots of property investors who are looking to retire. And that happens all the time. You have people coming into the market, people exiting the market. But right now, due to interest rates, due to increasing legislation, there are more and more landlords looking to sell up and get out of the property investing game. Now they're putting their properties onto the market, but there just aren't as many buyers right now as there were maybe a year ago. It's definitely turned into a buyer's market instead of a seller's market. You then also have homeowners who need to relocate or move for whatever reason, people who are downscaling, people who are trying to upscale to the next bigger house, and they are struggling to sell their houses because there just aren't as many buyers. So basic economics, the more supply there is and the less demand there is, property prices are going to come down. Now, prices will get to a point where people start saying, hey, you know what? Actually, this is a really good deal. We're going to start buying property. And many amateur investors say, you know what? I'm going to wait. I'm going to wait till prices hit the bottom, then I'm going to start buying. Now, in theory, that makes a lot of sense. But there's two major problems of that. The first problem is no one knows when prices are going to hit the bottom. You don't know, I don't know, nobody knows. So it's really hard to try and guess when that might be. The other major challenge is once it's hit the bottom and everyone knows it's hit the bottom, so the general public, the media, and in particular sellers know it's hit the bottom, the expectation is that prices will start to go up again. And that's because we live on an island in the UK that has a limited amount of accommodation and an increasing population. So over the long term, property prices go up. So imagine you're a seller. Imagine you know it's hit the bottom. You're going to hope that the market's going to get better. There are going to be more buyers coming back into the market. So you're going to hope that someone's going to come along and pay more for your property. What that means is when prices are at the bottom, it's actually harder for you as an investor to negotiate a good deal than it is when prices are still coming down. So really, as long as you know what you're doing, you want to be buying property when prices are coming down. Now, a lot of people worry. They say, well, hang on a minute, Simon. If I buy now and prices are coming down, it means in 6 or 12 months later, maybe that property is worth less money and I don't want to lose money. And by the way, people do lose money in property. But actually, let me ask you a question. If prices fall, have you actually lost any money? Well, the only way you can lose money is you have a property you bought at this price and you have to sell at a lower price. Then you're crystallizing that loss. But if you don't have to sell and you can afford to hold for the long term, then actually you haven't lost any money at all. And some people say, I'm going to wait for the right time to buy. The problem is they keep on waiting, and then they miss the boat. They never get around to it. And that is a huge mistake I see many people make who want to get into property, is trying to wait for the right time, and that right time never quite comes. Either because of the market or their personal circumstances, they end up missing out on probably the best wealth creation strategy known to man, which is buying investment property that pays for itself, that gives you monthly cash flow, and over the long term will go up in value. There's no better way to create long-term generational wealth than investing in property. But you do need to know what you're doing. And that's why back in 2007, by that time I'd been teaching for about 4 years. I'd been investing myself for 12 years at that point. A lot of people are asking me, how do we invest? They're asking the same questions. How do we minimize the risk? So I decided to write my book, Property Magic, and hopefully you've read Property Magic. If you haven't, make sure you go and get it on Amazon or get it on Audible. It's probably the best known property book in the UK. We sold over 100,000 copies over the last 15 years. And in there, I came up with the 5 golden rules that you can use to minimize your risks. I've got other videos on this, but let me very quickly remind you. The first rule, number 1, is we only ever buy from motivated sellers. These are people who need to sell their property quickly. We want to work with them to find an ethical win-win solution. Rule number 2, we only buy property where we've got a strong rental demand. So if the current tenants move out, we know we can quickly and easily find new tenants to come into that property. Rule number 3, we only ever buy for cash flow. This is so important. you must not buy a property unless it makes you profit every single month. Very, very important. Then rule number 4. We want to buy for the long term. It's long-term capital growth that makes the true value for us. And number 5, we want to have a cash buffer, a little bit of money put aside. So if you follow particularly rule 2, 3, and 4, buy in an area of strong rental demand, make sure it makes cash flow and hold it for long term. It doesn't matter if short term you get a slight fluctuation in property prices. But I guarantee you, because I was doing it back in 2008, 2009, buying when prices are coming down allow you to be far more flexible with the seller. And right now, there aren't a lot of buyers looking to buy property. It is absolutely a buyer's market. That means there are more sellers than there are buyers. Partly because many buyers are struggling to get finance and many buyers are standing by the side waiting to see what happens. And those people, frankly, are going to miss the boat. This is a great time to get in as long as you know what you're doing. Now, because it's difficult to finance properties, there are other tools that we can use where we can control property without having to get a mortgage. And right now, where it's difficult to get mortgages and rates are high, that is a really powerful strategy you should be looking at. So we can do things like vendor finance, where the vendor helps fund the deposit and the purchase of the property. And we can do strategies such as purchase lease options, where we can gain cash flow and equity growth from a property without actually buying it, which means we don't need big deposits, we don't need mortgages, and that means we can get transactions done very, very quickly. Now, of course, you need to understand how to use these tools correctly. I have a number of videos on my YouTube channel all about this, and we're going to be creating more videos over the next few weeks because this is what you should be doing right now. But once you know how to use the tools, you've got to know how to find them as well. And a lot of people might have tried to use something like a purchase lease option in the past. They've tried to speak to a seller. It hasn't been an appropriate strategy, and they think, oh, this doesn't really work. Well, it does work when you use it in the right circumstances. So I'm going to be sharing that with you in a few future videos. Now, if you've enjoyed this video, please do like it. That means that other people will get to hear about the video. It helps the algorithms. If you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel, make sure you subscribe and hit the bell icon so you get notified whenever a new video comes out. And also, please do put questions and comments below. What do you think is going to happen to the property market? When do you think the market's going to recover? I'd love to hear your comments and thoughts. Please post below and I'll come and answer as many of those as I possibly can. So until next time, as ever, I encourage you to invest with knowledge, invest with skill. I do hope you got massive value from watching this YouTube video. I'd encourage you to click on the link below to come and do the online training with me. And I've got another video lined up for you, which I think is also going to be really useful that you should watch once you've registered for the online training with me. So invest with knowledge, invest with skill. I'll see you very soon.